welcome back to our series of videos. In the previous video we talked about list and how can we create list in Python. In today's videos I'm going to talk about index positions. Index positions start at 0, not 1. In Python, if you want to specify a certain element in a list, you are going to use 0 for the first element, and if you want to call that that specific element, and for the second element 1 is used, and for the third 2 is used. Now let me write let me make a list names. Okay, names, and just me write certain names: Ahmed, Abrar, Bilal, and 3 names I think are enough. Okay, now let me print it. Now let me print names. Now if I print it, I will just get all these names: Ahmed, Abrar, Bilal. Now I need to call Ahmed. Okay, just Ahmed. To call Ahmed, you have to add names, and then you will have to specify which number do you want to call. If you add 0, you are going to get Ahmed. If you add 1, you are going to get Abrar. If you are going to get 2, then you are going to get Bilal. And if you add a title with it, title command with it, you could see that Bilal is capitalized, B is capitalized in Bilal. And especially you can also use upper and lower commands, which we discussed at great length in the previous videos. So go must watch the previous videos to understand what we are doing here. The code Python has a special syntax for accessing the last element in a list. By asking for the item at index -1, Python always returns the last item in the list. Let me give you another examples. Names is equal to, you should also try it with me. Write it a piece of page, write it on a computer, and this is how you are going to get expert. Otherwise things may get difficult for you if you don't try it. If you just watch it, then it may not be that helpful. Yes, it is helpful because you're learning, but you also need to practice it, and with practice you will get you will become an expert. Now let me call the last name. So if I want to call the last name Abdullah, then you are not going to use 0, you are going to use -1 here. And if you run it, you can see that you got Abdullah. And as I said, you can also write it in upper letters. You can write it in upper letters, and you can see that Abdullah is written. So in Python, if you use -2, then you are going to get Karar. And if you -1 or -3, then you are going to get Ahmed. And if you get insert 0, you are going to get Ahmed. So there are many ways to call a specific name. This syntax is quite useful because you will often want to access the last items in a list without knowing exactly how long the list is. Okay, sometimes you're going to have many elements in a list, and you're going to call the last element, or the second last element. So you need to understand these commands. Using individual values from a list. Now let's talk about using individual elements in a list. Now let's talk about using individual values from a list. You can use individual values from a list just as you would any other variable. For example, you can use f strings to create a message based on a value from a list. Let's try an example so that you understand what's going on. Let me write names and let me create the list again. Akbar, Bilal, Kohli, and let's say you add another name, Karar. Okay, let me just print it. Let me print it. If I print it, what I get, you can see on the screen that I get this output. Okay, now let me add a message to it. I am gonna call an individual name and I'm gonna type something about it, write something about it. So let's say that I write a message, and my message is, what could my message be? I said that f print, and let's say that he, okay, let's say write that my only friend was okay, then I'm gonna use curly brackets again. I'm gonna use curly brackets here, and then I'm going to write names. Okay, and which number do I want to call it? If I am gonna call the first element, then I'm gonna use 0. Okay, and if I want to capitalize it, write it as a title, then I will add title as well, and then I'm going to enclose it in quotes, and this is how it will be completed. Now if I run it, it will be like my only friend was Akbar. There is an error. Okay, and can you tell me where is the error is? The error is because I didn't add the print command. So how will it run on its own? That's the problem with codings. Sometimes let me tell you where the problem is. Here I add extra things, and that's the reason that it didn't run. So you need to be very careful how to use the how to use the commands. So let's if I printed for the first time print names, I got the list. Now if I am going to I added a message for my friend Akbar. I said that my only friend was Akbar, so my only friend was Akbar, which is capitalized as well. Now if I change it from 0 to 1, then I'll get my only friend was Bilal, and if I change it from 2, then I said that my only friend was Kohli, and if I added -1, then you could see that I will get Karar, my only friend was a Karar. And if I remove the title, then what will happen? It will appear as it is. It will appear it as it is. Now I got an error again. Okay, you can see that it is written as it is. Okay, and if you add -2, then you will see that you will get my only friend was Kohli. Similarly, you can add as many messages as you want to. Let's suppose that I add another message for someone else. You should remember the syntax. The syntax are very important. Let's say that my only friend was not now then you have to use 2 curly brackets and the names and insert the number that you want to call. Let's suppose I call it 0, and if I want to write it as title, then I'm gonna add title, and I should also enclose it. Now if I run it, you can see that my only friend was Kohli. Now let me run it to see what I get as it is in output, and you could see that my only friend was not Akbar, and you could see that Akbar is at what position? Number 1 position. That's why we have used 0 here, and here I use -2 is an index to -2 means Coleus card. Similarly, you can you can add a list, and then you can add message for your friends. Let's suppose that you are going to go make a list and you're going to describe each person. Then this is how you're going to do it. Okay, and this is very important in programming, so you need to understand it. Now if I assign you a simple task, okay, I want that you write a list of people that you want to invite for a party, and then write a message for every person in the list. Just describe what do you want to tell them, okay, and how do you want to greet them, like what could there be in the party, or what could your position be. So yeah, just do it. Now let's come to another important topic, changing changing adding and removing elements from a list. Okay, how can you do it? It is not that difficult, so let me teach you. The syntax for modifying an element is similar to the syntax for accessing an element in a list. To change an element, use the name of the list followed by the index of the element you want to change, and then provide the new value you want to that atom to have. For example, let me just write the names again. Let me write names, and let me just quickly add the list. Akbar, Bilal, and Sajid. Okay, now in previous, just a while ago, we talked about how can we add comments for each element. Now let me just print it. Okay, let me print it. If I print it, what will happen? I will just get the list. Okay, I got the list. Now it is easy. So far you got it. Now I just want to remove Akbar with another name. Okay, let's suppose I don't want to invite Akbar to the party, or Akbar got sick, or he's not coming, so I need to update the list. So how I'm gonna do it? Okay, it is quite easy. Just write names. Okay, and Akbar is at what position? 0 position. Okay, and I am going to assign another name for it. Let's suppose that instead of Akbar, I'm gonna call Jawad. I'm gonna call Jawad. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to print names, and you can see that Akbar will be replaced by Jawad. Okay, similarly, if you want to replace it with Bilal, just write 1, or if you want to replace it with Sajjad, just write 2. Okay, and if you want to replace it with the last element -1, you can also use the same syntax. I am using it again and again so that things get clear to you. I hope you got it. So how can you replace an element with another element? Just use the command, just call the position of the element in the list, and replace it with another name, and just use the print command. And you can see that in with the first print you got exactly the list Akbar, Bilal, Sajid. And in the second list, I update the list, and then when I update the list, I replace Jawad with Sajid, and there we have this new element. And that's really important in programming, especially when you're web developing, when they are active users and they are users who are subscribers and unsubscribers. So you need to keep updating the list from time to time. Now let's talk about adding elements to a list. You might want to add a new element to a list for many reasons. For example, you might want to make new aliens appear in a game, add new data to visualization, or add new registered users to a website you have built. Python provides several ways to add new data to existing list, and appending elements to the end of a list. That is very important. Simplest way to add a new element to a list is to append the atom to the list. When you append an atom to a list, the new element is added to the end of the list. Using the same list we had in the previous example, we will add the new element here, to the end of the list. Let's let me just write the list again. Write the list again. Names, names, Akbar, 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 and then Bilal, and then let's say Sajad. Okay, these three elements. Then I'm gonna print for the first time, so let's see what happens. You get exactly the same output. Now I want to add a new element. Okay, so let's say that names, and then I'm gonna use the command append, and then I'm gonna add whatever I want to add. Let's suppose that I add Kohli. Okay, now if I print names, you will see that a new element will be added at the end of the list. You can see that Kohli is added here. Instead of Kohli, you can add as another name, whatever you want. It is added here, okay, at the end of the list. Now we have 4 guests. First we had 3 guests, now we have 4 guests which are coming. Okay, one extra guest. The append methods make it easier to build list dynamically. For example, you can start with an empty list and then add items to the list using a series of append calls using an empty list. Let's add the elements on, or let's add the elements other elements, other names to the list. Let me give an example of an empty list so that you get what I'm talking about. Let me write a list names, an empty list. Let me make an empty list. Okay, empty list. Okay, now if I print it, let's see what I get. If I print it, you can see that there is nothing, you get a blank. Okay, now let me add append names, append Bilal. I'm gonna add names now. Names. Now if I run it, let me run it, you get one person in the list. Now if I want to add second element in the list, Kohli. Okay, and if I run it, you can see that now we are going to have 2 elements in the list. And if I'm going to add another element, let me add Sajad. Let me run it, so you can see that we had 3 elements in the list. Now let me add one more element in the list. Let's say I add Zainab, and let me run it, so you can see that we add 4 elements in the list. This is how you can add as many elements as the list you want to. Building list this way is very common because you often want to know the data your user wants to store in a program until after the program is running. To put your users in control, start by defining an empty list that will hold the user's values. Then append each new value provided to the list you just created. Inserting elements into a list. Now let's talk about inserting elements into a list. You can add a new element at any position in your list by using the insert command, the insert method. You do this by specifying the index of the new element and the value of the new item. Okay, with the appendix, with the previous command append, you can see that the values are added at the end of the list. But sometimes you need to specify the position. For that we use the command insert. Now let me write an example for you. Let's suppose I write names, and with names I write Akbar, I write Bilal, I write Rizwan, and I write Basit. I write these names, and then I print it. You can see that I'll get the list. Okay, now let me just insert a new elements into the set. And to insert new elements into the set, I'm going to use the insert command. Okay, if I'm going to use the append command, I just have to add whatever I want to add. Now if I am going to use insert command, okay, I need to specify the position, at which position I want to add the name, the next name. So let me add the next name at position 2 or position 1. Position 1 we use 0, and I enclose it. And let's suppose what could be the name that I want to include. Let's suppose that I add Ghulam, okay, Ghulam, and then if I run it, then you can see that okay, now let me run it. Now let me just run, and you can see the updated list here. You can see that Ghulam is added at first position, and at second position we and then we add the list of the previous the names of the previous list: Akbar, Bilal, Rizwan, Basit, Akbar, Bilal, Rizwan, Basit. And in the first place we got Ghulam. We can also change the position, like it could come from 1 to 2, and you can see that it's it is now in second position. Similarly, if you want to add another name, let's suppose names insert Khan, at -1 position I add Khan. Now let's see what happens if I do it. Now if I do it, then you can see that at -1 position the name minus Khan. Now if you run it, you can see that Khan is at third position, Ghulam is at second position. Similarly, you can change the places of the names that you want to insert, okay, which is very important. Now let me teach you how to remove an element from a set. Removing an element from a set is very important. Sometimes you may not want to add certain elements in a set, and you need to remove it. First you add it, and then you need to remove it. Sometimes new users come to the website, new features are available in gaming, so you need to replace the previous features, some things like that. So let me teach you how to remove elements from a list. It is really important. Often you will want to remove an item or a set of items from a list. For example, when a player shoots down an alien from the sky, you will most likely want to remove it from the list of active aliens. Or when a user decides to cancel their account on a web application you created, you will want to remove that user from the list of active users. You can remove an item according to its position in the list or according to its value. For removing an item using the del statement, okay, you use the del statement. Now let me just write names. Let me create a quick list: Akbar, Bilal, and Akbar, Bilal, and Suzaki. So Akbar, Bilal, and Sajjad, let's say. And then I say print names, and if I run it, you can see this as usual. Now I want to remove del names. Which one I want to remove? Let's say I want to remove Akbar. Now print it. You can see that you are going to have two elements in the list. Bilal, Akbar is gone. If you want to remove Bilal, then Bilal is removed, and if you want to remove Sajjad, then Sajjad is removed. This is how you are going to remove elements in a list. And if you want to add another elements in a list, then we have already talked about it, that you can use the append or you can use the insert command, which is quite easy and quite simple. Okay, there is another method called removing an item using the pop method, which is quite easy. Sometimes you will want to use the value of an item after you remove it from a list. For example, you might want to get the X and Y position of an alien that you just shot down. You can draw an explosion at that position. In a web application, you might want to remove a user from a list of active members and then add that user to a list of inactive members. The pop method removes the last item in a list, but it lets you work with that item after removing it. The term pop comes from thinking of a list as a stack of items and popping one item off the top of the stack. In this analogy, the top of a stack corresponds to the end of a list. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose I have a list. I have a list. Let's suppose, and I have names Akbar and Bilal and Sajad. Okay, and I say print. I'm gonna print it, and if I run it, you can see that I got the list. Now I want to pop off. Now let me do it. Now let me use the pop command. Okay, I call the variable is like this. Okay, and names, and I remove. Let me use the pop command. Now let me just print what I'm gonna print. Now let me just use the print command. Now let me just print names. Now if I print it and I run it, you can see that Sajad is being removed from the list. Okay, now but if I use the command print popped names, you can see that the Sajad will appear again here at the bottom. Okay, so you can use it later back if you want to. So this is really important and very crucial. Now how might this pop method be useful? Imagine that the motorcycles in the list are stored in chronological order according to when we own them. If this is the case, we can use the pop method to print a statement about the last motorcycle we bought. Let's say that we got motorcycles, motorcycles, a list of motorcycles that I'm going to make, and I have the list. Okay, I have the list. I have Honda, and I have Yamaha and Suzuki. Okay, Suzuki. So I have these three motorcycles. Now last owned motorcycle was pop motorcycles dot pop command I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna print. Okay, now if I print, and as we already described below, the last motorcycle I owned was enclosed and last owned, and if I want to describe it as a title, you can also do that, then enclose it in quotes. Now if I print it, what I will see here that the last motorcycle I owned was a Suzuki, and we can see that by pop means that the last element will be removed from the list, but it can still be used whenever necessary. Okay, so pop command is very crucial. Similarly, you can use pop to remove an item from any position in a list by including the index of the item you want to remove. In parentheses, let's suppose if I add 0, then a Honda is gone. Okay, and if I add 1, then you can see that the last motorcycle I owned was a Yamaha. So these pop commands are very crucial. Remember that each time you use pop command, the item you work with is no longer stored in the list. If you are unsure whether to use the del statement or the pop method, here is a simple way to decide. When you want to delete an item from a list and not use that item in any way, use the delete statement, the del statement. If you want to use an item as you remove it, use the pop method. Okay, that's the difference. Now let's removing an item using the pop method, removing elements from a list, and now let's removing an item by value. Okay, sometimes you just don't remember like in which position the element was, so for that in such circumstances you just need to use the remove command. Suppose I write names, and if I write names, I'm gonna list a quick list: Akbar, Bilal, and Sajad. Okay, this is my list. Let me print it, and if I print it, you can see that I get the output. Now let me just remove what I want to remove. Let's say I want to remove Bilal, so I just have to add the command, and now just if I print it, you will see that Bilal will no longer be in the list, and this is Akbar and Sajad. So you can remove any name by just adding the remove command. Okay, and if you want to use specific index, and sometimes the list is long and you just don't remember at what position the element was. So for that purpose, if you remember the name, just use this command and the thing will be removed from the list. One thing more that I would like to tell you is that you can also use the remove method to work with the value that is being removed from a list. Let's remove Sajjad. Okay, let's remove Bilal is being removed from the list, and let me bring it back. So how can I do it? Print, okay, and then I'm gonna use quotation F, and I'm gonna use F, and okay, let me give some space. Okay, then I'm gonna add the name. The name is what? Okay, Bilal, and Bilal is represented as something that you need to remember. Present Bilal with something like a variable. So let's say that removed, and which thing is you removed? You have removed Bilal. So here we insert the variables. Bilal, you are gonna insert the variable removed, and if you want to write it as title, you can also write it as title Bilal, and you can say whatever you want to say. Bilal was a nice person. This me just write this comment. If I run it, let's see what happens, and you can see that there is something wrong. Let me fix it. Okay, so fix the issue. So you have to assign a variable to the name Bilal. Then you have to use the command names.remove. You have to remove this variable, which is Bilal. Then print names, and there you have to write whatever you want to write. And if you run it, you could see that you get this thing: Bilal was a nice person. Here you can see that Bilal is removed. Okay, print names, and here you can see that we got Bilal back, and we just just write something about it. Okay, one important thing that you need to know is that the remove method deletes only the first occurrence of the value you specify. If there is a possibility the value appears more than once in the list, you will need to use a loop to make sure all occurrences of the value are removed. We will cover this in the upcoming videos. What is the loop and how can we use it?